approved the new companies bill, which mandates that companies with the net worth of rupees 500 crores or more, a turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, and a net profit of rupees 5 crores or more during any financial year spend 2% of their 3-year average annual profit towards corporate social responsibility. Clause 135. To put it simple, these 3 lines have brought us all over here and bringing many other places to discuss the emerging landscape. It actually is still a conundrum. It's emerging. And who better to learn it from? Who better to learn it from than the man behind this whole thing? We have with us Dr. Bhasker Chaterjee, CEO, IICA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. As Secretary in the Department of Public Enterprises, Dr. Chaterjee was leading reform among Indian state-owned enterprises, laying a special emphasis on corporate governance, human resource management, sustainable development, and CSR. He is also a widely acclaimed management practitioner, theorist, and teacher. In 1990, he authored his first book, a path-breaking work entitled Japanese Management, Maruti and the Indian Experience. Most recently, his widely acclaimed book, Leadership India, Leading Changes, Changing Lives, was also released. I welcome you, sir, to please address this gathering.
Mr. John Bede, Dr. K.K. Upadhyay, Mr. Parul Soni, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Frankly, I would have been happier to come in at the end and follow up on what my distinguished brethren on the dais had already said. But since I've been escalated and put up here to face the audience on a bright morning, let me try and run the gauntlet. There's this buzz about CSR and it's happening all over the country. And very many people are very curious to know how it all came about. And now that it has come about, how should we go about it? Need we go about it at all? So very briefly, I'll try and recall some of the thought that's gone behind it. Why has government made this legislation at all? Having made it, what are government's expectations from the corporate sector, from the NGOs? And finally, what is the corporate sector and NGOs' expectation from government? And that, I think, will more or less round up what we need to say, get a perspective on what we need to do. First off, CSR, as you would have heard from the opening speaker, has as many definitions as are people on this planet. And therefore, it's very hard for us to say what is CSR and what is not. It means too many things to too many people. If you look at it from the very narrow perspective of this particular legislation, however, it has a very distinctive definition. And the purpose of drafting that legislation was to ensure that there is no other definition. This is it. So what you need to do under the law should be very, very specific and should be very clear to every person in the audience. It means, very simply put, that you need to actually show in terms of hard cash what you have spent on CSR. That's the first input. You have to reveal project by project exactly how much money you have spent. So if it is not rupee measurable, it is not CSR. That's the first principle. A principle so unique that it's never been developed in any corner of the globe. You read report after report of any company on earth, and you will never see how much they've spent activity-wise, or even completely. The second point, it's not enough to say I spent 5 rupees or $1. What you spend needs to total up to 2% of your net profit, which incidentally now the rules put up on the website indicate profit before tax. PBT, not PAT. These profits before tax are also defined as companies which have 5 crores or more as an average of the last 3 years. So if you've gone zoom up and zoom down and so on and so forth, and the average is less than 5 crores, you can go to sleep easy. But if it's a little bit over 5 crores, well, you're in the ambit. That's the first part. What will constitute CSR activities? They are defined in Schedule 7. Every one of you should have Schedule 7 in front of you. If you don't know what CSR is. Schedule 7, which is also up on the website, by the way, defines 9 activities only. Therefore, anything outside of those 9 activities is not CSR for the purposes of this bill. However, at the very end of those 9 definitions, it says any other aspect which may be prescribed. Hence, if government in its enormous wisdom prescribes any other thing, then we guys can take it. If they don't prescribe, too bad. So now I've said to you, you are only attracted if your PBT crosses that 3-year margin. If it is rupee measurable, it is. And it is one of those 9 activities. That's broadly the definition of CSR. You might find that constrictive. You might find that, gives you practically no elbow room. But it also gives you very specific clarity on what you can and what you can't. How many companies would be attracted by this definition? Approximately 8,000. How many companies are registered in this country? Anyone, any idea? Well, technically there are more than 10 lakh companies. Actually about 11 million. But of them, approximately 800,000 are registered. Of those 800,000 or 8 lakhs, the number of companies who would actually be attracted by this legislation is 1%. 8,000. Therefore, the number of Indian companies that are actually going to come aboard on this legislation, irrespective of the huge buzz that surrounds it, is just 1%. Second off, how much money are we going to release through the CSR system? And the figures have been differing so wildly. Everyone has a wild guess at approximately how much. Nobody really knows. We ourselves are crunching the numbers. But it'll be somewhere between 10 and 12,000 crores in the very first year. Probably jack that up to about 15, 17,000 crores from the following year.